Hi, I'm Rick Springfield. You're tuned into Rock Cellar TV.
Rock Cellar TV. Rock Cellar TV. Rock Cellar TV. Rock Cellar TV. Rock Cellar TV. Rock Cellar TV.
So when you're writing a new record, how much are you thinking about the audience, and how much is it just I'm following my muse, and if I like it, hopefully people will like it?
Yeah, it's that. It's really don't. I don't write with an audience in mind. I never have really. I mean, I did in the mid-'70s. I tried to write a disco song, and it was so horrible. I said, I'll never do that again. So yeah, I would write, you know, as just as the ideas come. I just write, and if I like it, I finish the song. If I don't, I move on. You know.
Does it surprise you what sticks with an audience? You know, what someone embraces, where obviously you dig what you're doing to put it on a record, but have there been surprises with songs where, wow, I thought this was something that would really connect and it didn't, and then other songs that connected that you were surprised about?
Yeah, I mean, that happens all the time. I was actually surprised Jesse's Girl was kind of the one that radio picked, really. And I had a song off the last album that was I thought a throwaway track that we used just as like a bonus track on certain things. And it was called Walking In. And like a lot of fans think that's one of the best songs I've ever done. But I thought it was just, you know, throwaway kind of country sounding track. So I don't really know myself what's going to be picked up. I know this will piss off a lot of people, this album, but I'm okay with that. You know, I mean, you know, you gotta write what you gotta write, and we'll see what happens with it.
Well, why will it piss off some people in your audience?
Oh, well, it's already been. I mean, there's one Santa's an anagram I kind of wrote as a joke, and people are going, "Oh, I'm done with Rick Springfield and this guy with this song." So I figured Jesus with an atheist will really get him going.
What was your mindset working on this record? Were you thinking for a while to do something where you delved, you know, a bit deeper into your roots with blues? Yeah,
I thought I had a friend I have a friend in Australia that's kind of a contemporary. I was in a band called Zoot in Australia that was kind of big. It was big in the late '60s, early '70s, for about 3 years there, and he was a big pop singer. You know, it was all the teen thing and everything, and he recently put out a blues album of stuff he wrote, blues songs that he wrote, not doing old blues songs that most people do. What they do blues albums, they pick old blues songs that they love. Well, he wrote his own about Australian gangsters, and it was a huge hit. A lot of people loved it, and it kind of restarted his career. And I was inspired by that because I've always played blues, you know, my early bands are all blues bands. And I'd always thought about, and I do a blues song in my stripped down show, and a lot of people said, oh, you should do a blues album. So I did. And I wrote, just wrote what I was thinking about, basically. That, you know, it's about God, the devil, and sex. And it's my 3 favorite things to write about.
It's funny. You know, your slide guitar and dobro guitar work is all over the record, and it's been a part of, I think, starting with Karma.
Yeah, I actually heard I did a show where they played like some old tracks of recent albums. I didn't realize I played so much slide on all the tracks, but I did. And Karma, certainly, I was pushing the slide, but it was more like melodic slide, like George Harrison kind of slide, whereas this stuff now is more traditional blues, dobro work, and resonator guitar work.
When did you start playing slide, though? Was it around the time of Karma where you really started getting into it?
Yeah, it was. I was doing a TV show called High Tide. It ran for 3 seasons. I mean, you have a lot of downtime, so I bought a dobro and just started teaching myself how to play slide. And I've always loved it, loved the sound of it, and so it was not long after that I did record Karma.
Did it take a while to find your voice on slide? And who were some of the slide players you were trying to emulate, at least at the beginning?
Well, it's more like blues notes rather than a styling, you know. I was playing traditional kind of blues licks off it and just kind of making them up based on blues notes. I wasn't really kind of following any particular slide player. Certainly, I'm sure all the ones I've heard were in my head, all the great players that Elmore James and that, who did the initial kind of vibe of slide playing. But I think Karma was like me just copying George Harrison thing, you know, with the double tracking, real melodic stuff. There's no real blues playing on Karma. So, you know, there's some solos on this that I play on slide that are melodic solos, and some are kind of more traditional blues. So it's.
It really feels like such a natural extension of you. It's something that, you know, you seem to have come into fairly quickly to be able to capture your own voice with slide.
Yeah, it felt very natural, and I just, you know, like you said, just followed the muse.
Yeah. Well, you know, going back to Speak to the Sky, your first single, which was a hit in America, your songs have always had, you know, checking out the songs on the records throughout, there's always been songs that have dealt with spirituality and religion. And that's a huge thread on this record, with songs like Jesus is an Atheist, God Don't Care, Judas Tree, all that type of stuff. Can we talk a bit about that type of delving into that realm, perhaps much more deeper than you normally do?
Yeah, it really, I mean, I've always had spiritual links somewhere on my album, but this this album, I mean, I kind of look around and I see evil everywhere, you know, and I don't really see where God is anymore. And so that's what this album is kind of addressing, that evil seems to have taken over. And people seem pretty comfortable with that, you know?
But God is dog. So
yeah, no, I mean, I have crosses all over my house. I have cross tattooed on my arm, for crying out loud, you know. So the whole religious, Orthodox, you know, Christian thing runs very deeply in me. But I've also looked east, you know. I had a whole album called Tao. But you know, this is stuff kind of from my childhood, I guess. That kind of I was raised a certain way, Christian beliefs, and it was still believing in the white bearded dude somewhere else, you know, that they used to believe was on top of the mountain until they climbed the mountain and realized, oh, well, then he must be up in the stars till we reach the stars, and oh, well, it's, you know, wait, where is he?
Given the darkness of the album, do you think darkness is something you gravitate to pretty easily with your writing?
Fairly. It's my go-to, you know, I mean, my early pop songs were all stuff I didn't get, or paranoias, and dark, you know, I think the only party song I've ever written is Love Is All Right Tonight.
American Girls was one too.
Yeah, but that's like way early, when I wasn't necessarily I wasn't writing necessarily as truthfully as I should. I was very consumed with sex and girls, and so it kind of, all the early '70s stuff is about a lot of that kind of thing.
A lot more imaginary and just
more imaginary, less truthful.
When did you think you hit more of a truthful vein in your writing?
I don't know. I mean, there's truth in all the records, certainly. You know, I mean, there was in Speak to the Sky. It was a song about after my dad got sick. I wrote that. That was really the first. When my dad got sick, he actually died, and then they revived him in 1970, and that's when I wrote a song about that, and that's when I realized, I can write about stuff that actually happens to me, and it's very fulfilling. Whereas before I just made shit up about, you know, some girl I was having a fantasy about, or picking off lyrics off other songs, you know, and just using cliches and stuff. And really, my dad's death was his first illness was when I started to write truthfully, and it kind of went in and out through there. But I think I was always kind of after when I started recording by myself, I think I started to get more truthful.
You wrote a song in Zoot called Mr. Songwriter, and I was curious to see if that love of songwriting was something that was where you thought you were going to go.
Yeah, that was one of the first. That was in a band called Zoot, and I was just starting to write with the idea of I'm actually going to record these songs. Whereas before I'd just been writing because I loved to write, and I was finally in a band that was recording, and they didn't have any writers in the band, so I became the writer. So yeah, I really started to love songwriting around that time. You know, say, oh, I might be able to do this. This may be something that I can, you know, have some success at. And my guitar playing kind of basically took a back seat from that point on, and every time I pick up a guitar, it was to write a song rather than to learn a new lick or you know.
Why was, you know, I was going to ask this later, but with Beginnings, it's much more of an introspective record, and a record that doesn't reflect what you were doing in Zoot, which was, you know, some Who-ish type of, you know, guitar pyrotechnics and a much more high energy thing. Why was that record much more of I love the record, but why was it much more of an intimate type of thing? Was it just kind of what you thought was what you needed to do at the time?
Well, actually, most of them were songs I'd written while I was in Zoot that Zoot wouldn't do because we had become this kind of rock thing, you know, Who-style rock band. And, you know, the ballad, kind of introspective ballad stuff wasn't something that I would take to them and say, hey guys, here's a new song. You know, I was always looking for something with a riff, and so I wrote riff stuff for Zoot, and you know, and guitar, bass, electric guitar, bass stuff, because that was our biggest success was that style thing. And these were songs that I basically wrote for myself and knew they Zoot wouldn't be interested in. And then when the band broke up, I said, well, I've got all these songs. Maybe I'll make a record myself. I'd really never thought of going solo. You know, I was always saw myself as a band guy.
Yeah. Getting back to the new record, there's a lot of pain in this record. I'm curious, do you think that as a songwriter, having that source of pain to pull from equates with more robust creativity?
Yeah, I definitely I think most creative people that I know personally have major issues with their self-worth and their belief in themselves, and they have a lot of questions. And I think the questions and the introspection is what creates writers, because they look inside a lot more often and question a lot more often, I think, than you know, other paths, I guess you might say.
Yeah. Like the rest of the record, I want to speak about Blues for the Disillusion. I mean, the lyrics on this record are spectacular. I think it may be the best lyrics you've written for a full record.
Wow.
I love the line, Nixon hangs with Elvis, Sleeping Beauty sleeps with Frankenstein, St. Joan of Arc and Lemmy have become the best of friends. Getting Nixon, Elvis, and Lemmy in a lyric, you deserve a gold star for that.
Thank you.
But I wanted to see if you could talk a bit about that song, but also just about lyric writing for this record, where it's of such a detail. It's not a lyric about boy chases girl, boy gets girl.
Yeah, well, I'm married now, you know, so happily married. So if I'm writing necessarily about chasing after some girl, then it's probably going to be either an old memory or I'm making shit up. But I've been, you know, it's what I've been thinking about. This album is when Matt, who I wrote this record. This one I wrote by myself, but the last three records I've written with Matt Bissonette. He's a good friend of mine who plays bass with Elton John, but he's also a brilliant songwriter, and he used to be in my band. And Elton pinched him, and Elton seems to be looking to my band to pilfer other band members. But Oh shit! What was I talking
Talking
about?
about Blues for the Disillusion and just the
Oh,
depth
yeah.
of the lyrics. Of
Yeah, yeah. I don't know what I was going to say.
Well, there's a great depth of
I have
lyrics.
ADD.
That's okay. There's a great depth of lyrics with this record. It's a real thinking man's type.
Yeah, it's stuff I've been thinking about for a long time. Oh, that's what I was going to say. Matt and I would always, we had great conversations. One of the things I like about him and why we started writing together was we'd have all these conversations on the road when he was in my band. And we'd look around at the world and truly like, oh, what the fuck? You know? What is going on? Like, you know, Matt was a big believer in the end of days, and it just looked like everybody was going full steam ahead, you know, to the brick wall, and was okay with it. Yeah, we're toast, you know, and it seemed very odd choice for me, and poisoning the earth. And I wrote a book. My first novel, Magnificent Vibration, centers on our poisoning of the planet. It's a humorous book, black comedy kind of, but it centers on us destroying the world, you know, with our ignorance and our poisons and our burning our rainforests and overpopulating the world. And so I've been thinking about it for a long time, and you know, that's why a lot of people are so sure there are aliens coming to save us, you know, or we're looking at another planet as a possible other home. That's not going to fucking happen. You know, this is it, and we better get it together. And that's, you know, why that's what I started to address in this record, just my frustration with all of that.
Well, I mentioned Elvis in this, and I've always wanted to ask you about that meeting with Elvis, because I know you've been asked before about this, but I want to get a little deeper into it, because I actually found a photo that someone took of Elvis on that plane. I think I may have sent that to you.
You sent that to me, and when he's in the blue suit and he's got the, yes, it's so weird, because I was looking at that the other day going, man, I wish I'd had the wherewithal to say, can we do a photo together? But I wasn't
really
like,
happens, yeah.
Yeah, I met him on a plane and going to Hawaii. He was going to Hawaii, and he looked great, and he had this light blue suit on. You can find those photos. Yeah, you're great at pulling out shots like that.
What was that? So you're on the plane. You were going to.
I was going to Australia. Back then, the planes refueled in Hawaii. They couldn't do the whole trip to Australia from LA in one jump like they can now. So it stopped in Hawaii, and I get on the plane in LA, and Elvis is like sitting in the front section and looked amazing. I mean, he had jet black hair, he was skinny, he had this light blue suit on. I'm going, wow. And skin looked great, he was tan, and he was the great looking Elvis, you know. I went, wow, that's Elvis. I went to the back of the bus, of course, which is how I was traveling in those days. And I wasn't a big fan. I was a Beatle guy. I was a bit too young to have got into Elvis. My brother was into Elvis. But my girlfriend back home in Australia, who I was seeing, whose name was Allison, which I wrote another song about, was an Elvis fan. So, and he did something I've never seen. He came, before the plane landed, he walked back down the passenger area, and signed autographs and took photos with everybody. I've never seen anybody do that. Usually people, celebrities sit up front kind of like this, don't bother me. Elvis got up and was saying hi to everybody and signing autographs. He got to me, and at the time I was being managed by Steve Binder, who directed his comeback special, the '68 one with the black leather. So I said, yeah, Steve Binder's my manager. And he goes, oh, Steve, yeah, I love Steve. So we had a little bit of a conversation about Steve rather than just, oh, Elvis, it's you, And I wasn't it was cool. I wasn't overwhelmed, oh my God, it's Elvis. I would be now because I'm a giant fan and Elvis is gone and he's taken on this whole almost religious friggin' persona, But back then it was just, oh, you're Elvis, yeah. It was like meeting Don Knotts or someone. Oh, Don Knotts, yeah, I know who you are. I had him sign this autograph to my girlfriend. I said, would you sign this autograph to Allison? And he signed it, and then, finished talking, went back to his seat, and the customs bastard stole the autograph. The Australian customs, fuck you, Australian customs.
You're kidding.
Yeah.
Did you tell Allison the story?
I did, yeah. She was very upset.
Wow. Suicide Manifesto charts your struggles with depression and even thoughts of suicide. And going back, you know, reading your book, it was a surprise to me that in your, was it your early teens that you actually tried to?
I was 16. Yeah, I say 17 in the book, but I think I was 16 because I was still in school. Yeah, and I tried to I gave it a good shot, hanging myself, and it didn't. And the rope, still don't know what happened, but I was hanging there for starting to go out, and the rope either came undone or something, because I knew how to make a noose. I was very into the whole death thing as a kid. Used to build guillotines and little gallows, and I'd have this little cowboy, and I'd make a noose and had a trap door that sprung open, and he'd drop, and I was just I had a guillotine. Every time I built guillotines, like 6, 8 foot guillotines in my backyard that worked. I mean, they couldn't chop anything. It was like a metal, but it was a tin blade. But it went up and you'd release and the blade would drop. And every time my mom we'd have an argument, she'd go out there with an axe and chop it down. So I'd go out there and build it again. But so I was very into the whole, you know, I knew how to make a noose and everything, and I made one, and something happened, and I ended up on the floor with a big rope burn around my neck, and it was kind of I was relieved, obviously, because suddenly all that pain had disappeared. Oh shit, I almost killed myself. And you know, it was ignorance and pain and being a young, lost kid. So yeah, I still think about it, you know, and when those the people that have committed suicide recently, you know, I go, how the fuck could they do that? I go, yeah, I get it. I get where they went, because I understand that. The thing is difficult, why I started talking about it was just that it's part of my life. So to not talk about it would be untruthful, you know. And you know, people go, well, why do you write songs about this when you seem so happy? And you know, anyway, and if you can prevent a 14-year-old from doing something stupid because they're being temporarily bullied online, then you know, that's something I would be interested in being part of for sure.
In your book, you call depression, you give it a name, Mr. D. I'm curious, you know, is it a heavier struggle now with Mr. D, or has he kind of moved away a bit from your psyche, or is it always there?
It's always there, and I don't know if it's gotten worse. It's gotten worse at different times, for sure. But there's times when it's not there, for sure. But I know, you know, I always have to watch out for it, for sure. I don't feel it when I'm playing with dogs. I don't feel it when I'm playing on stage. I don't feel it when I meditate. But it's always hanging out in the corner, you know.
Have you ever thought about what's the deep-rooted explanation behind your connection with dogs? Is it because you left your dog behind, or is it just because you really can connect with them? I feel the same way about my dogs.
Yeah, I connect with people who connect with dogs, and I had a traumatic experience. You know, we've always had dogs growing up. We've always had a family dog. But I got my own dog when I was about 7 years old. We were living in the country in Australia. And I called him Elvis. And then my dad got posted from Australia to England because he was in the army, right? And so suddenly we're going to England. I had no idea even where England was. I was like, by this time I was 9 years old. And first thing I realized was that I couldn't take Elvis. I'd have to leave Elvis. So I made arrangements with one of my school friends, and I remember walking him down the driveway of this kid's house. He wasn't home. He said, I won't be home, just tie him up in the back. I tied up my dog and I walked away, and he started howling. And I don't know how I did that, but it's definitely put a mark on me, you know, left a mark. And so I've tried to heal that. My first dog after that was Ronnie, who was on my album cover, Working Class Dog, and he was black and white like Elvis was. Elvis wasn't a bull terrier, but he was.
What was Elvis? What type of dog?
He was a mutt. You know, I couldn't find a photo of him when I wrote my autobiography, but I've since found photos of him. And yeah, he was just a mutt, you know, black and white mutt. And so, yeah, I tried to heal it through Ronnie, and but I just love dogs. I mean, I don't know, they make me feel good. You know, I call them Prozac on legs.
In The Land of the Blind, I think you just did a video for that. It centers upon flawed leadership. Leadership that if we can even call it leadership. But let's talk a bit about that song and your impetus to feel so strongly to write about what's happening in the world.
Yeah, it's just I mean, it mentions a lot of things. It talks about God, it talks about our leaders, it talks about, you know, the church, and it's just basically what it's saying is wake up. Take the blinders off, you know, because we got the blinders on. The guy, you know, it's the phrase, in the land of the blind, the one-eyed man is king, which is meaning if you're going to stay blind, then you're going to, you know, someone's going to take advantage of that.
There's a great lyric in Orpheus of the Underworld, the future in exactly what I thought it would be. Where do you see us heading? Are you optimistic?
What is that line?
The future in exactly what I thought it would be.
Thought it used to be.
Thought it used to be, yeah. Exactly.
Yeah, I used to be very hopeful for the future. I mean, that's just, I'm not so hopeful now, but I used to be, you know. And it's really, Orpheus is really one of those songs I wanted it to be interpretive, you know, people be able to kind of read into it what they could.
10-minute epic.
It is. I just wrote till I stopped, till I didn't have any more verses, you know. I didn't really kind of limit. I didn't go, this whole album, I didn't go, well, it needs a hook. I mean, I just wanted to write and let it be what it was. And it's unusual for me because I'm, you know, I'm one of the hook guys.
It's very Dylan-esque.
Well, Dylan is a big influence for sure. And he to me is the greatest music writer of of any rock generation, absolutely, without question. And so yeah, I'll pinch a bit off Dylan and a bit off the Beatles. And
You're pinching from the best.
Yeah, why not pinch from the best? Fuck.
If your fans could take away one message listening to the record, what would you like them to take away that would hit close to home?
Fuck Rick Springfield. Question, you know, don't lock into dogma and think that's it. If you stop looking and you stop questioning, and you know, my mom had great. I'm talking about religion particularly. In that, when I say that, my mom had great faith and was very sure about her God. And when she died a year ago, was very sure where she was going, and I envy that. But and I believe that I have my own beliefs, but I question them, and as a writer, I don't know anything else to do other than to question them. And so I would say question, look deeper, certainly read. You know, reading seems to be a lost art now. I read nonstop, and it fills my head with crazy ideas sometimes. But you know, you filter through them, and
what are some of your favorite books that you go back to?
Authors, I certainly go. I mean, I was a big sci-fi guy. I've always loved sci-fi. I think. I mean, the Dune trilogy. I had that by my bed and Stranger in a Strange Land. I had all those. I had a couple of those books that became like a Bible to me. They opened up a line of thinking I hadn't been aware of before. And the whole Dune thing, the whole spiritual thing and the religious thing of the Dune trilogy was amazing to me. That great sci-fi writing has always been very, very almost like therapy to me. Because it's not just space opera shit. The great writers go deep, like, you know, Frank Herbert did, and certainly Heinlein did, and so I was a big Arthur C. Clarke fan. I loved his view. He was a big atheist, Arthur C. Clarke. He thought there's a wasp in Australia that he, because he lived in Sri Lanka, which used to be Ceylon, which is closer to Australia than certainly England, where he was from. But there was this Australian wasp that buries its young in the abdomen of a certain spider, so that when the young hatch, they can eat their way out of this living creature's abdomen. So basically, they consume this spider from the inside out. And he said, I can't fathom a God who would create a creature like that would cause that much pain to another living creature. And I kind of extrapolate on that with, well, he also created human beings, and we're the cruelest, ISIS buried women and children alive because of their beliefs. That's pretty fucked up.
Yeah, that's crazy. You've had 17 top 40 hits. The majority were rockers. But it's interesting, early on you thought, and some of the singles early on were ballads like What Would the Children Think and things like that, but you always thought that you were going to make your mark.
As a ballad writer, yeah. Yeah, I did. I was surprised none of them really caught fire, actually. But I always did love, playing guitar. I always loved the big spread guitars on a track. And but when when I signed to RCA in 1979, I'd written 3 songs. They'd heard 3 songs. None of them were. One was like a Speak to the Sky kind of thing, with a banjo and boom.
What was that called?
It was called Television.
I'd never heard Television.
Yeah, it was like a reggae thing. Television, television. About how we focus on. We get all our ideas from the TV now, And the second one was a thing called Easy to Cry that was kind of like a rip-off of Once I Rode Upon the Noise, Carry On Wayward Son. It was like had the kind of...
but a huge hook.
What's that?
A huge... I was listening to it on the way down.
Oh, really?
Hook,
yeah. Oh, you have that?
Well, it's on the Working Class Dog Deluxe Edition.
Oh, it is?
Yeah.
How did they find that? Anyway, and one other song, which was a ballad.
Taxi Dancing?
Was it Taxi Dancing? Wow. Well done. Yeah, so they heard those 3 songs and liked my writing, but, and actually, Ed DeJoy, who signed me, one of his favorite albums was Comic Book Heroes, which my second album, which did nothing, sold maybe 4 copies, thank you, 4 copies. And that was his main hook to sign me, was this old album that I thought, what a waste of time that was. Nobody bought it. But it was the best review I ever got in Rolling Stone, too, actually.
It's a great record.
Yeah, I have mixed feelings about it, for sure. But
yeah, what are your mixed feelings about that? The songs are fantastic.
I think, I don't know, I had a tough time recording it, and was still trying to find my voice, my vocal range and stuff, and I hear a lot of awful notes, and I was really unsure about, should I push this teen thing or should I go the other way where my soul really wants to go? And so it seems a very Jekyll and Hyde album to me.
Great solo on Believe in Me, though. Beautiful solo.
Oh, yeah, well, oh, thanks. Well, that's my SG, which I still have. And played in Ricky and the Flash, and wrote Jesse's Girl on, and it was my first good guitar. I bought it in Australia when I joined Zoot. I still have the receipt.
Now you painted it white, but you brought it back to its regular
color?
color?
When I joined Zoot, they were dressed in pink. They were a teen band. And so I painted it pink. It was originally the red, the mahogany, and I painted it pink. And then I said, we've got to drop this pink thing. It's really not cool. So I painted, then we dropped the pink thing, and I painted it white. And it was white for pretty much, all through my career over here. And then one point, I had scratches in it and everything, and it wasn't the original thing, so I just had it redone back to its original red, and it's a beautiful guitar. It's my favorite guitar.
Yeah, you played it on my record, and it's fantastic.
Yeah, I love SGs.
Yeah.
I love the sound, and mine's one of the great ones, from the 1968, 69, I think it is.
Mick Jagger has people play a game with him where he says, of all the songs they've written in the Stones, he can at least give you some of the lyrics for any song you ask him. So I'm gonna.
Oh, I'm not that guy, dude. I still have frigging, cheat sheets on for my old songs.
I'm gonna test you with a few. First one is One Broken Heart.
One broken heart, I know it cuts like a knife. One broken heart, no reason to give up on life.
Okay, you did
Thank
good
you.
with that. Why are you waiting?
Why are you waiting? What if I fail? You won't fail. Why am I waiting? What if I fail? You won't fail. You won't fail. I don't remember verses though, but I certainly remember the hooks.
Do you love your children?
Well, I really need to know. That's it. Do you love your children? Yes, I really need to know, I think. I don't know. I don't know that one.
Tonight.
Tonight? Nope. Tonight's a night. Nope.
Yes.
It's going to be
It's from Success Hasn't Spoiled Me Yet.
Yeah, I know. I like the verse. It was a continuation of Jesse's Girl, was what it was. Because I love the idea, like Peggy Sue got married. I love that. I always loved when they continue a thought, and it talks about Jesse and Patty in the song. Jesse breaking rock, and I don't know, something like that, or about working on the dock, and yeah.
You did okay.
Yeah.
Speak to the Sky was a big hit, but then there was pretty much a 10-year period where nothing was happening, and you were really shooting. You're taking acting gigs, anything to stay afloat, but you still believed in yourself. When that success came, and maybe you felt it would be the panacea for how you felt about with your self-esteem, or just how you felt about yourself, did it soothe that? And at what point were you disillusioned when you said, "Yeah, this is what I always thought was going to be what was going to push me over the edge and give me contentment. Having success, doing what I love, still doesn't do it." When did all that stuff happen?
Well, for the first couple of years, it was okay. This is great. This is kind of how I imagined it would make me feel, and a little bit of ego crept in, thinking it might be all about me, and then about 1985, I saw a MTV interview that I'd done on the bus, one of the last tours I did in the 80s. And they were interviewing me, and I was sitting there like this, playing with my shirt, with my head down, and talking really quietly. And I realized,
You're not happy.
I'm not a happy guy. And so I remember the moment, walking around this really beautiful big house I'd bought in Malibu, thinking, this is not doing it. I feel like shit. And it's like, like having cancer, and you get the drug that you think heals you, and suddenly you realize the tumor's still growing, It was that kind of feeling. It was really scary, helpless, oh my God moment. What do I do now? And so I pulled the plug. I stopped everything and started going to therapy. And I think that saved my life to that point, being able to do that.
To keep going and to give you inspiration. I asked Bob Seger about this too. I told him you put up an interview with him,
Yeah.
or a story from Cream,
In my Hollywood apartment.
on your apartment, to keep you going and not to give up.
Mm-hmm.
For people that have as much passion for music and are still trying to make it, what would you tell them? What would you give them to hold to heart to keep going? If you could be the Bob Seger for other people.
Have always been a follower of self-empowerment, like Tony Robbins has taken a great path with it. I think he's a brilliant guy. As big as he is and everything, he's still got a great message and delivers it really powerfully. what I do with my own kids, I guess. I've given them books that I've found motivating and have been giving me strength at times when it was just me, alone in my apartment. And certainly Bob Seger's interview was part of that. I had it stuck up on the inside of a kitchen cabinet, so when I reached for the plate, for my TV dinner, I'd see that and go,
What would the interview say? What did the
I don't remember. It was just something about how he'd struggled and nobody wanted to sign him, and it was tough. And basically all it was I'm not the only guy struggling, was what I guess I got out of that. And that struggling doesn't mean it's not going to happen. It just means you're struggling. And I guess that was the thing that helped me, was that I knew inside that something would happen somehow. And I doubted it and would sit there at night sometimes crying, going, it's not going to happen, I'm going to have to go back to Australia with my tail between my legs. But then I'd read something, and I was always I pushed myself. I was always very motivated to do the right thing and to be successful and have people hear my music and like it. So read all you can, read motivating things, because it's up to you. It's only up to you, and you don't have someone in the corner every day going, you can do it, you can do it. You've got to be that person, and you got to just stay in the game. And the only time you fail is when you stop trying.
Had success not come for you and you had to you stayed in America and you just took a job that maybe you worked at a vet clinic, who knows what you would have done, but do you think you still would have been writing songs just for the love of that and for that
Yeah, I think so. I mean, I was in a top 40 band before I signed to RCA. I was making okay money, playing...
what were they called?
Night Train. No idea why we called it that, but it was my girlfriend, and it was my buddy Jeff Silverman, who still works on my albums.
What were you doing covers of? Do you remember?
Oh, everything. Top 40 stuff we do. Quit Dragging My Heart Around. We do Led Zeppelin stuff. We do.
The Knack.
What's that?
The Knack.
The Knack. I don't think we did My Sharona, but that was very much in my. Even when I was playing the top 40, I was learning from these songs that I'd never played before. Going, that's that chord progression, I'd probably be, in a top 40 band.
You probably still would be doing that.
And be still writing. I think I probably would have got a cover or two by now, maybe. And Alan O'Day actually lived around the hallway from me in an apartment building when he had Undercover Angel, and I'd gone, yeah, that's cool. I actually took Carry Me Away, which is the flip side of Jesse's Girl. I took that to him and said, I think I need to rewrite the chorus on this, because I don't think it's happening. And he goes, dude, the chorus is great. So I actually was going to sit down ready to rewrite this song with him, because he'd had success, and I thought, have a touch of that, please.
Yeah, believe in yourself. I'm curious. In every business, there's going to be people that are just, when you're in higher echelon, people are going to tell you they're going to be yes men or yes women, whatever they're going to be. But who are the people you can always turn to, or are going to be straight to you in your life about whether it's music, your career, or your personal life? Who are the people you go to?
My wife, my kids, and the people I don't really ask people about music, I mean, I play it. Like Maddie's my sound, who does the engineering in the studio and is also our front of house, Maddie Spindell. I didn't play him the songs and go, what do you think? What do you think? I just demoed them with him and see what he said, and see what he said about them. And he's going, oh God, great, love that. The lyrics are great. So I get encouragement like that. But I'm very nervous playing new songs for people in case they go, dude, really? Yeah, it's a big scary moment for me to play a new song to somebody before it's been recorded and I've been able to kind of see it in full Technicolor. You're just sitting there with a guitar playing it. It's like,
I mean, the Snake King is such a different record for you. There's no other record like this in your catalog. What did your band and the people you played on this record think? Like, what did Tim Pierce think when he was coming into play? Was he surprised by the darkness and the tone and the direction?
No, Tim doesn't really comment on that kind of stuff. Tim just sits down and nails it, and then we move on, you know. And he doesn't really pay attention to the lyrics when we're overdubbing stuff. But the band, I mean, I got some, you know, I laid the acoustic down first with a click track, and then went into the big studio East-West for the drums and bass, just so we could have room sounds, right? And they're playing along. My drummer, who's in my band, Jorge and Seger are my drum and bass players, and they're playing along, and they're really playing cool stuff, and not really saying much, you know. Occasionally they go, yeah, I like this song. I'm thinking, oh my God, they must think this is crap. But then I finished it, and played Little Demon was the first song that we finished and mixed, and I played it for Jorge, and he goes, holy shit, I had no idea you were going to put this stuff on top. All he heard was acoustic and a rough vocal. So they were kind of blown away by where it went from where they heard it. And Wendy Wagner, who is an amazing amazing singer, she does session work, you know, all forever, and is on the road with Joe Walsh. And she came over to do the backgrounds, and she looked at the lyrics, and she's going through the lyrics through the songs and going, Rick, what happened to you?
That's so funny. Well, I know you're a huge fan of, you're a huge collector of Beatles and Star Wars memorabilia. So I'm curious, what are your holy grail items for each that you'd like to obtain?
Wow. Well,
sorry, real quick.
We have until it's 11?
Yeah, I just want to stop
It's
soon.
5 to 11 right now.
Oh, is it? Damn. Okay, we're going to stop and then just have Rick do a couple quick things. Okay, yeah, this will be the last question.
do you want me to answer that?
Yeah.
Well, the Holy Grail stuff, I have a character called Headman, which is Star Wars. I love the character. I'm really into the little, it's totally geeky, but the carded little 3-inch figures. And I have Headman, who is so rare, he wasn't even in any of the movies. It's a Turkish bootleg, and it's the only bootlegs that collectors collect, is this Turkish one, for some reason, because the artwork's super cheesy, and I don't know, but it's super cool. It's a space guy with a sword and shield, which is really a fucked up look, and I just think it's cool. And the Beatles stuff, I have the lyrics to Lucy in the Sky with Diamonds in both John and Paul's handwriting, and a drawing by Paul of Rocking Horse People, and a drawing of the Sgt. Pepper's cover, how he first envisioned it, which is them in Victorian outfits with drapes, and that's how he first saw the cover. So that's pretty friggin' awesome.
Are there any Holy Grail items you're wanting from either the Beatles or the Star Wars?
Oh, well, Paul, you could send me yesterday lyrics. That would be cool. Would like that very much. Wouldn't sell them. I'm a collector, not a seller. Star Wars, I have all the cool figures, the ones I like. I sold a bunch of my stuff that I bought originally, but I just wanted the 12 geekiest ones. Replace you, still burning for you in bed, hoping time will erase you.
Thanks so much, Rick.
Rock Cellar TV. 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 Rock Cellar TV.